Thank you, Jose, and it's really great to be here in front of all of you. And I'll spend the next few minutes talking about digital public goods, whatever that is, and I'll try to explain what that is, and of course, in the context of sustainability. So, what has happened in India over the last 10 to 15 years is that there have been a wide range of platforms, digital platforms, that have been built either by the government or enabled by the government. And these digital platforms are extremely important for the economy and for the society. And now we are beginning to see the full fruits of this technological approach. When we talk about digital public goods, one is of course they are digital, so they use digital technology. They are public in the sense that they are built for everyone to use. They are free, generally free and available for everyone to use, which means that they are built at the scale of a population. So in India, with a population of 1.3 odd billion people, these digital platforms have been built so that every one of the people in the country can participate. They are built to be very low cost because everybody needs to be able to use it. They are built for very high volumes because with so many people using them, then it needs a lot of volume of transactions, and it's built for very small value because it has to fit the purchasing power of people in the country. So broadly, these are, and it should be accessible to everybody. It's an inclusive approach so that everybody has access to these tools. Now, the first of these digital public goods that was built was Aadhaar, which is the ID system for 1.3 billion people. That happened the time when I joined the government. So after my career in Infosys, I worked in the government for 5 years, from 2009 to 2014. And we built this unique ID platform called Aadhaar, which now has 1.3 billion people on it. It's a very simple ID system that just says who you are or verifies who you are. So if you say your name is John, then it verifies John is John, or Ashok is Ashok, or Rahim is Rahim, or whatever. And this is used every day. Every day it does 50 million authentications, which means that every day, somewhere in the country, somebody is identifying himself with this system 50 million times. So it's really a very, very popular system and is used a wide variety of applications, whether it's to withdraw money from a micro ATM, to do biometric attendance, or so many use cases are there. So this was the first example of that. Now on top of the Aadhaar platform, we also built something called eKYC, or electronic KYC, which is essentially a way to do know your customer electronically online. And that does about 5 million transactions a day. And basically the eKYC is done for things like opening a bank account, buying a mutual fund, buying an insurance policy, buying a mobile connection. All these things require KYC. And what the KYC does is it dramatically increases the productivity of people because they can open a bank account in 2 minutes, or they can get a mobile connection in 2 minutes. And therefore you can really do it at scale. So millions of people can access these services. And there are other things built around it. Then the government built something called Digital Locker. And I don't know how many of you use Digital Locker, but today we have 120 million Indians who use the Digital Locker. And they use that, it's like a gigantic cloud storage for every Indian, free to use, provided by the government. And in this locker, you can keep your Aadhaar details, you can keep your PAN card, which is your tax ID, you can keep your driver's license, you can keep your vehicle registration, you can keep your COVID vaccination certificate, you can keep your graduate degree certificates, and so on. And today, the Digital Locker, which was launched by the government in 2016, as I said, has 120 million people using it with over 5 billion documents. That has really become very, very powerful. So many people don't carry any physical documents at all. They just store them in the digital locker, and when they're walking into the airport, they will show the driver's license or Aadhaar as ID. When they're stopped by the cop, they will show the driver's license, and so on. So fundamentally, digital locker essentially made all documents digital and stored in a very secure manner in this cloud artifact that everybody gets to use. And then one of the big reasons for building the Aadhaar project was really to make India's delivery of spending or benefits much more efficient, because India was increasing its expenditure on transferring money or benefits to people. And so the Aadhaar program was linked to the banking system, and you could use the Aadhaar to open a bank account using the KYC, as I mentioned, and you could also use Aadhaar, use the bank account to put money in using the Aadhaar number as the address. And this is used for what is called as direct benefit transfer. So when governments want to transfer money to people, they can directly put money into the bank account in near real time, and that's very, very powerful. And this program, today the Indian DBT program, as it is called, is the world's largest DBT program, with hundreds and millions of people getting money into the bank accounts. There are already about 700 million Aadhaar-linked bank accounts where you can put money in. And during the pandemic, the Aadhaar-linked bank account, the DBT was very powerful and very useful, because the government had an urgent need to transfer money, benefits, emergency funding to millions of Indians affected by the pandemic, who were vulnerable, who had moved back to their home, villages and so on. And the DBT was very, very effective in delivering money very, very, immediately into bank accounts, which is a very powerful way of helping people. And not only the money can be put into the bank account using the ID, the money can be removed from the bank account using the ID. So today we have, in India, we have a few 100,000 business correspondents in villages all over. And if you receive money in your bank account, you get a message, you go to the nearest BC close to your house, and you can do an Aadhaar biometric authentication and withdraw money from your bank account. So this does millions of transactions every month. So all these systems have actually enabled the streamlining of government transfers, government benefits. It's also removed any loss of money, because the money goes directly into people's accounts. It has played a big role in women's empowerment, because many of these monies go directly into the account of the women in the household, so they get the money into the bank account. So it has had huge social and other benefits for the country. Then sometime in 2015, the NPCI, there's a very fine organization called NPCI, the National Payment Corporation of India, which is a non-profit based in Bombay, owned by about 45 entities, including banks. And they came out with a payment system called UPI. And UPI was essentially a very modern, state-of-the-art, real-time payment system, which allowed you to transfer money from any bank account to any bank account immediately, so in real time. And you could do it using any app that you wanted. So today it's possible that you use a PhonePe app and you transfer money from your ICICI account, and on the other side, the person is using WhatsApp or Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever, and they will be having their bank account in, say, SBI. And all this happens in real time. So this is a very advanced payment system which is used, and this payment system is provided as a public good by the government, which means this payment system has no transaction cost, either to the consumer, to the recipient, the merchant. Nobody has to pay a transaction cost. So if I transfer 10 rupees to somebody, they get 10 rupees. There's no deduction of commission from that. And this has been made possible because it's a very, very sophisticated but high volume but low cost payment system built by NPCI. And this was launched in May of 2016. By October of 2016, it led to about 100,000 transactions a month. So just was picking up. Then we had this withdrawal of currency notes in November of 2016. And then digital payments suddenly became a very important and strategic goal. And last month, UPI did 6.8 billion transactions. So the world's largest payment system. And it is, last year did about $1 trillion worth of transactions. So it's a very, very big part of the economy. And what is interesting is it's very widely used and consumed. I'm sure those of you who have Indian bank accounts and phones are using UPI. There are currently about 260 million Indian users of UPI. So there are 260 million people in India who use UPI for payments, and they could vary from people in this room, but what is very heartening is if you walk down, certainly in Bangalore, if you walk down a street, whether it's the vegetable vendor, the coconut vendor, or anybody else, they all take UPI payments. So UPI has become a ubiquitous payment system for the country, and it's really had a big impact on the transformation. So roughly about 260 million people use UPI, and another 150 million people use the Aadhaar-enabled payment system to withdraw money from the bank account. So if you think about it, by and large, the people withdrawing money from Aadhaar-enabled payment system generally are not the people who have smartphones, whereas most of the people who use UPI have smartphones. So there are approximately about 400 million people in India, and if you say the total number of adults is about 800 to 900 million. So 40 to 45% of Indians today use some form of digital payment, which was zero 10 years back. So there's a dramatic shift in consumer behavior and consumer usage, which has become very powerful. And then what happened in the first phase of all this was digital transactions started becoming common. Now, whenever you have a digital transaction, you need to be able to, it leads to a digital footprint, right? When you do a transaction, there's a record of the fact that you made the transaction. And you would call this as a digital footprint or a digital trace. And the question then comes, how can people take advantage of their digital footprints to improve their lives? Now, historically, in most of the world, when you have a digital system and the digital system generates a lot of data, that data is then used by a company or used by the government. The companies use them for monetization through advertisements and so on. Governments use them for whatever purpose. But we really never had a situation in the world where people can use their data for themselves. In other words, can we empower people to use their own data? And India is the only place in the world today where you have a way for people to use their own data. That means 1 billion people can use their own data. 20 million businesses can use their own data. And this ability of people to use their own data is called data empowerment. And so India has come out with something called the Data Empowerment and Privacy Architecture and Protection Architecture, DEPA, which allows people to use their own data. So what is a practical example of this? A practical example of this is how do individuals and small businesses get access to credit? Now, if I'm an individual, now typically, historically, how did people get access to loans, to credit? It was based on their business or their assets. So, if you took a car loan, then you gave your car as the collateral. If you took a house loan, you took a mortgage on the house. If you are a company which took a loan on working capital, you had to give them details of your inventory and what you have in stock and so on. So historically, the collateral for loans in the world has been assets, physical assets. For the first time, we are able to use the digital footprints of people's activities as assets for the purpose of lending. And we call that as information collateral. In other words, so suppose I'm a person and I have a job and I'm getting my salary every month into my bank account and I want a loan, then I can just get my bank statement digitally from my bank using the data empowerment architecture and in a secure manner give it to a lender who knows that this is my bank statement from my bank which has been safely delivered to me, and on the basis of that, that bank or that NBFC can give a loan to that individual. Or if I'm a small business, I can have details of all the sales I've made because everybody is buying through UPI and therefore I have digital record of sales. I can send all the invoices I have paid, which is the supplies I have bought. I can send them electronically, my balance sheet signed by my auditor, and I can send details of my tax payment which are made to GST and income tax. So all these digital footprints of my business activity, I can request from these respective people and give it to a lender to give me a business loan. So instead of giving details about my assets, I'm actually giving details of my transactions, and my transactions is a proxy for my business health and business performance, because anybody can figure out from the data that I run a successful, profitable business and I'm deserving of a credit. And therefore, the big shift that is happening is a shift from asset collateral to information collateral. And that is something which is dramatic because it is democratizing. It will allow millions of people to get access to credit. It will allow millions of small businesses to get access to credit. Now, it's also important for job creation because if 10 million businesses get access to credit, then they can grow their business, they can hire more people. So if the 10 million businesses hire even one person each, that's 10 million jobs that will be created from this method. So access to credit is fundamental to the growth of small businesses, and we are enabling that at the scale of every business using the information collateral, which is the byproduct of their digital activity. And this is a very important conceptual point that I would like to leave with you. So what else? So for small businesses to grow, first you need access to credit, and we are solving that with this whole issue of DEPA, or what's called as the account aggregator framework. This framework has been launched. Today, 1 billion bank accounts are linked to this framework. All the major banks are connected, and about 1 million transactions have happened, and they're growing every week. And this again is a big area of push for the government and the Reserve Bank, and therefore we expect to see more and more of this. And this will lead to an upsurge in credit in a democratic way for businesses and for consumers. Now, after giving companies access to credit, they also need access to markets. How do small companies get access to markets? That's very important because if more companies get access to markets, there are more consumers, there are more buyers, there are more sales. And for that purpose, there's another piece of the public infrastructure which is being created, which is called as the ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. And this again is an attempt to open up and unbundle commerce, e-commerce, because normally the way e-commerce operates is one company provides you all the services. So you have an app of that company, you use that app to order something, they have qualified suppliers on their network, those suppliers sell it to you and then they ship it to you using their suppliers. So it's one-stop shop for the shopping. But if you really, now e-commerce today in India may be 5-10% of India's commerce, but tomorrow it will become 40-50% of India's commerce. And what the pandemic has shown is that our use of digital technology is accelerating for every part of our lives, whether it's meeting people, doing work, working from home, whether it's ordering things, getting food, entertainment, everything is digital. And therefore, if e-commerce becomes digital, how do we make sure that everybody in the country can participate in e-commerce? And essentially, ONDC is something which opens up e-commerce for all, which means every retailer in the country can be on e-commerce offering his products. Every manufacturer in the country can create a catalog of his goods and put them on ONDC platform for anyone to order. And anyone who is in the logistics business can become part of the ONDC network and deliver goods for anyone in the system. So let's say that you're using your app is a PhonePe app, which is a very popular app, which a company which belongs to Walmart. And a PhonePe app, you order something, you order a pair of shoes, then you can look it up and all the suppliers in the country who are listed on ONDC come up, and then you can select the supplier, and then you can select whether the supplier should deliver it or a third-party logistics company delivers it to you. So you're able to do this full transaction, but there are different parties involved in that. And this essentially means that everybody can now be on e-commerce. Every retailer can be on e-commerce. Every supplier can be on e-commerce. And therefore, but it's in a much more democratic manner where you unbundle the consumable, the purchasing part from the supplier part, from the delivery part. ONDC again is a public initiative. ONDC is a company set up as a non-profit company. It's owned by 20 shareholders. It has been initiated and spawned by the Department of Commerce, the Ministry of Commerce, the DPIIT, which is the investment promotion group, and they have sort of incubated this company. Now it's taking shape. Already ONDC trials are happening in Bangalore, in fact, And over the next 2 to 3 years, you will see that ONDC will take off. So just like the account aggregator or DEPA gave companies access to credit, ONDC will give them access to markets. So both these things happen, and both these things will help small businesses to grow. And then the third thing is, how do we get people? And so there's a whole skill ecosystem which is evolving, which will allow people to have skill certificates to show that they have particular skills, and they can use that certificate and their data to get another job and so on. So that will create more liquidity in the labor pool. And all these things are essentially going to contribute on the economy side. But there are other things that are happening. In education, India has implemented a thing called Diksha under the Prime Minister's e-Vidya program, which is essentially providing a digital infrastructure for learning at scale. So millions of teachers are on this platform. They can, every textbook is QR coded. All the topics in the textbook are QR coded so that anybody with any app can read the QR code and bring up the corresponding topic. There are about 600 million textbooks in this country that are QR coded, each with an average of about 20 QR codes per textbook. So there are 12 billion QR codes out there, all of them linked to specific topics in specific books, which you can access with the ease of a phone. So all this is the infrastructure for digital learning, which is all falling into place. Similar initiatives are happening in health. The Ministry of Health has the CoWIN system, which was very successful in keeping track of the vaccinations. But now they're building the health stack and creating electronic health record for all Indians, which is portable, because the big challenge in health is how do you make your health record portable and allow people to take their record from one place to another place. So if I get my first opinion in this hospital and then I go for a second opinion, I want to take my records with me. And the electronic health record system being designed by the NHA, which is part of the health ministry, is designed for that. So that's on the health side. And there are many, many other things that are happening. There is a big project at IIT Madras called AI for Bharat, which is part of the National Bhashini National Language Mission. The idea is to use AI for machine translation for all 22 Indian languages. So in real time, you can convert from any Indian language to any Indian language, text to text, text to speech, speech to text, all those things. So that'll also be inclusive, because that will allow millions of people to participate, because they will be able to get access to information in their own languages. And then beneath the whole protocol of ONDC is something called the Beacon Protocol. I think Sujit is going to talk to you tomorrow about it. And the Beacon Protocol is really agnostic protocol for creating interoperability in systems. So it will be used in commerce with ONDC. It will be used in mobility. There's currently a project going on in Kochi to create complete interoperability of all mobility providers in Kochi and so on. He'll talk more about it tomorrow. But these are all ways to unbundle digital activities. Then, of course, there's FASTag, which has transformed India's highways. And essentially, every car, about 80 to 90% of the vehicles in this, four-wheelers in this country now have an electronic FASTag attached to a bank account or a wallet. And whenever you cross through the toll gate, they automatically deduct the money from your account. And that this year will do about 5 billion transactions. So fundamentally, what you're seeing is a major revolution in technology where government and government-associated players are building population-scale infrastructure, which is leading to more inclusion, better targeting, more effective, improved productivity, and so on. And all these technologies are available as open APIs, which means that people can build on that. And that's where startups and innovation comes in. So startups and innovators can use this infrastructure and create very successful companies. So when Reliance Jio launched the mobile network, they used the Aadhaar KYC to accelerate customer acquisition. When Zerodha became the largest player in the discount broking market, they used Aadhaar KYC to rapidly onboard customers. When all the new payment banks came, like Paytm Payment Bank and others, they used Aadhaar KYC to get customers rapidly. When UPI was launched, companies like Google Pay and PhonePe built huge companies on top of this payment infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So fundamentally, it's not just about government enabling this digital infrastructure, it's also about creating it in a way that private innovators can build very, very useful applications on top of this. And therefore, it's a way of creating digital public goods or digital rails, which is essentially sponsored by the government, but allows private innovators to build on top of that. And that's why this thing is so powerful. And this is not a new concept. If you look at the original internet, the internet was built by the US Department of Defense and DARPA and so on. And then you had the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web was designed at CERN in Switzerland and funded by all the European countries. And that became a public thing. All the HTML, HTTP came out of the Switzerland, the CERN labs. And then the browser, the Mosaic browser came out of the labs at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, funded by the NSF, which is the US grant-making National Science Foundation. So fundamentally, all these were funded by public infrastructure, but they were then designed for others to use. Similarly, GPS was funded again by US Department of Defense, but today GPS is available with API, so you can use your Uber or whatever, Ola, because you can find your location with GPS with these APIs. So the concept of publicly funded digital infrastructure on which a lot of private innovation can happen is not a new idea. It's been around for 20 years. What has happened in India is that that idea of public infrastructure has been extended to identity with Aadhaar, to payments through UPI, through data empowerment with DEPA, through open commerce, through ONDC, through open interoperability, through Beacon, and so on and so forth. And so it's really at the cutting edge of thinking about how countries can apply digital technology for their larger public goals of inclusion, productivity, education, and so on. So these are all these tools are by and large available as open source. So they're really there for the world to use, so anybody can take this forward, and I believe there's a lot of global interest in this, so I do hope that you will take this message back to all your colleagues, that all these technologies there, it's all accessible, can be used and can be used around the world, and I'm sure that many more countries can benefit from this technology, and we look forward to working with you on that. Thank you very much.